Greetings, listeners. My name is Astro Phil. I'm an astrologer and spacetime diviner, practicing a grounded approach to the heavenly ecosystem. And this is Astrocast. Welcome, and thank you for riding along. Every once in a while, a piece of media will make the rounds saying that you aren't actually the sign that you've been told by astrology, because the constellations have shifted, and they're always shifting in their position in the sky. So, say you're born August 30th, 1986, but actually you're not a Virgo. You're a Leo, according to this new information. And then you might think, you know what? Maybe I am. And you find these ways that you're like a Leo, based on what you've read or heard about Leo somewhere. And some of that resonates. So astrology must be based on the wrong stuff, right? And then you meet somebody, like maybe me, who says they do astrology work, and you bring this up, wondering if maybe they have an explanation? So this has happened to me a few times recently, where people are referencing some article. I haven't seen it. I don't get fed astrology content. I never click it or read it, listen to it. I want to keep my signal clear, the signal between the planets and myself. But yeah, something's going around. So here's a response. The zodiac, as you know it, the tropical zodiac, is not actually based on the positions of the constellations. It's based on the relationship between Earth and the Sun. The tropical zodiac is like a pie, a circular pie, cut precisely into 12 equal portions. Those portions being the 12 signs. And our sky is nothing like that. The constellations vary in size. The signs are indeed named after constellations that are on the ecliptic and in a row-ish. But the position of those signs in the zodiac is not based on pure astronomy so much. It's based around the equinoxes and the solstices. So that's 4 points, equally separated: spring, equinox, summer, solstice, fall, equinox, winter, solstice. Within each of those 4 seasons, we have 3 evenly divided sections. 4 times 3 is 12. Those are the 12 zodiac signs. So whatever engine is churning out these periodic clickbaity articles, that whole idea is arising from a misconception of where the zodiac really comes from. And then a person might say, well, it makes sense though. I actually have these traits that align with this other sign. And they're right about that. And then I realize I've gone into this whole argument defending the zodiac just to correct this initial misconception, when honestly, I don't even use the signs much as a system of meaning, because to me, it's unreliable. If you're looking primarily at the signs, you're missing almost everything. It's like the crust of the bread. So then, I might get a question about the houses. Of course, the zodiac isn't everything because there's these houses. But let me tell you, the houses are potentially even less valuable than the signs. If you go to any, there used to be in-person meetups of astrologers. I feel like now it's mostly on the Zoom. But if you would have gone to one in 2015, you could listen to the astrologers babble and argue about which house system is correct. And there's never any resolution. There's no house system that universally works. The whole thing is flawed. And I take reading charts pretty seriously. People are placing a lot of value in the astrologers' interpretations. So why even speak from a position where there's nothing close to a unified knowledge? No consensus. If I throw out the houses, I lose very little. Little side note though, I do retain and rely on the angles, the ascendant, the descendant, the midheaven, and the IC, or the root. I call it the root. The good news is, though, as far as signs and houses, we don't have to lean on them so heavily. As much as I'm a person of antiquity, farming, homesteading, raising kids, I also like to embrace some of the perks of modernity. And computation and data crunching has blown up our ability to conduct research and get extremely specific when it comes to meaning, which is why we don't need the vagaries of the signs and houses anymore. We can explain it all with more specificity and deeper layering just by looking at the planets, the asteroids, the astronomical points, and how they relate to one another. For example, we can define your strongest traits and behavior patterns, good or difficult. We can locate those traits to the degree, like, for example, the 25th degree of Cancer. You've got this trait there. We can name the dates in the past or the future when that pattern in you is going to be triggered. It's extremely useful stuff. It's the horoscope with a microscope. Now, it's unfortunate and frustrating to me that this is not the norm yet. Don't get me wrong, I love old traditional tools, and they have their uses. For me, in the garden, splitting wood around the house, in many ways, I resist the onslaught of new technologies. But I don't understand why we're using these advanced phones and computers to practice the same techniques with astrology as people were practicing with stone tablets and chisels. As beautiful and romantic as that picture is, really. It's gorgeous. Papyrus and stuff. Something so ancient as astrology can also be quite stubborn, and not changing. That's just the nature of being old. So, example, you'll download your app, your new Astro horoscope app. It fits with all the common knowledge of what astrology can tell you. But the designers of that app are just trying to make a buck. They aren't even aware of what we're capable of now. Very few people are. They're just fine with the surface and not curious what's going on beneath. They don't know, but they're constricted within the boundaries of a form or time, unaware of those limitations. And I think this is why a lot of people find astrology easy to dismiss, even confusing, because they're only witnessing a blur. Minimal potency, but just enough to think there's something there. It's puzzling. Puzzles are alluring, especially magical puzzles for us mystical peeps. But that puzzle has no resolution. Me espousing this whole point of view is to say, I actually feel a distance from the term astrology. Does it mean something much different to me than what it means to others in and around the field? I looked it up on the internet and the American Heritage Dictionary. This is what they call it. Quote, the study of the positions and motions of celestial bodies in the belief that they have an influence on the course of natural earthly occurrences and human affairs. Now see, I can vibe with that. And that's why I'm okay saying I do astrology work, I guess, particularly vibrational astrology. But the more common point of launch for people is, what's my sign? What's my sun, moon, rising? And what's that mean? And that's a great threshold. But maybe I need my own definition for the sort of astrology that I'm talking about. And I guess this has all been moving in that direction anyway. So here it is. I'll expand on this, but the distilled definition I choose to spring from is space-time coding for subtle truth. Space-time coding for subtle truth. So, why space-time? Space-time. This isn't Back to the Future, if you know what I'm talking about. It's a movie. I want to start with a translated quote from Herman Minkowski as I explain this definition. In 1908, just a few months before this guy died at age 44, suddenly, he said some cool stuff in his lecture that he gave. He was a mathematician and a geometry nerd. He was actually one of Einstein's professors in Zurich. The two of them combined their intellects, not in the same room necessarily, but over time, to form the definition of what we call space-time today. Like what physicists call space-time. He says in his lecture, Raum und Zeit, which is German for space and time, that, quote, space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows, and only a kind of union of the two will preserve an independent reality. He proposed that space-time was the four-dimensional fabric of the universe. 3 dimensions of space and a 4th dimension of time. Now, I love this respect for time. Even as a gardener, which is not as impressive as Minkowski or Einstein, what they were doing, I think of time as the 5th element, after water, earth, air, and heat. There's time. Time is the orchestrator that allows the 4 to cooperate. And agrarian cultures have recognized this for ages and ages, though perhaps not within those terms. Cultivators in every climate to this day grow food with a lunar cycle. No matter their opinions on astrology, religion, science, whatever, they do it because it works. So Einstein's contribution to the definition of space-time was that he hypothesized with math that it curves around massive objects, like Earth or any planet or body possessing gravity. Now remember, gravity is still a theory. We still can't explain what it is, or that it's even real. Like 350 years after Isaac Newton made the idea mathematical. Now again, I'm an average Joe, gardener, homesteader, and dad, and astrologer, but I'm not trying to swing with these titans. Nonetheless, I have my own theory and zero math to back it up. I don't think space-time bends around matter, like Earth, or you or me. Certain waves seem to, like light, I concede, but I believe there are other metaphysical properties of space-time that don't curve around us. Rather, space-time imbues us, even imprints upon us. I think we are carriers of space-time. We act it out. We, living beings, are 3-dimensional, and time, the 4th dimension, gives us life, gives us meaning, gives us story. We are a union of space and time, and like Minkowski said, only a union of the two will preserve an independent reality. And each of us is an independent reality. Now, for you esteemed mathematicians tuning in, feel free to slap me upside the head, but that's where I'm at right now. And I'd love to take you somewhere as an astrologer/magic school bus driver if you want to hop on. And just like Miss Frizzle and her bus, there are no seatbelts. And the laws of physics can be leaned on when we need them, but they're not necessarily going to impede our journey. Okay, so what are the two integral pieces of information to cast a birth chart? You need the place of birth. That's a three-dimensional space. And you need the date and time, to the minute of birth. That's an earthbound standard of time. Space and time. I've learned over years of astrocartography work about the bond between person and place. You are a human, so we know you're born on Earth, right? For the time being. But without the birthplace, there's no chart. No map of the heavens. We need to know the coordinates, because without the place, the birth date and time are useless. And without the time, the place is useless. We need both. A union of the two, or there's no chart. For example, you know your rising, your ascendant? That's a name for the position of the cusp of the eastern horizon at the time and place of your birth. It's based on Earth. Where on Earth and when on Earth. We need that grounding, or we're just floating. And then the chart has no direction, no orientation, no identity. It's not a chart. So, okay, that's my space-time spiel. Now, space-time coding. Well, this relies on the idea that space-time, organic reality, is encoded, guided, that every moment and every place in space unfolds in accordance with some sort of ordained set of laws. Even what we call chance or chaos under this definition is a part of the code. A code we can't fathom due to its complexity and the limits of our own intelligence. It's my belief that the code is alive, it's flexible, and in a state of constant change, like an ecosystem. The next question, who created the code? That's beyond my vision. But if you're willing to take the leap that there is this code, you'll find pretty clearly that wherever the code comes from, it's replete with backdoor entryways. We have these small windows like astrology, like tarot, I Ching, and cardology, divination systems that guide us to truths that are often unapparent without them. But only one of those systems requires explicit space-time information to generate those truths. In this case, regarding the substance and fates of your being. And you could point to something new, too, like human design, or the gene key systems. People are always bringing those up to me in readings and stuff, as similar in function to astrology, and as similar in function to the fates and substance of your being. But they do, I believe, call on your birth data, your space-time origin. They're wanting to define the constitution of your unique humanity. Really, it's quite interesting that all these techniques seem to work pretty dependably in that function. And even within astrology, there's multitudes of types of astrology. Tropical, Vedic, Mayan, modern, medieval, sidereal. Goes on and on. There's tons. Vibrational. But the foundational information that carries them all through is the same. The positions of the major celestial bodies of the solar system at specified times on Earth. Our back door to the code of the universe. It's wide open, begging us to step inside. It's a birthright. It's the DNA of your cosmic spirit. Another way to look at it. In the seed of a sunflower, one could locate and genetic sequence the unalienable traits of the potential plant. These are clear characteristics. The petals are golden. The leaves are green. The stalk is brittle. The roots really grip the earth. Really, really gripping. The life cycle is somewhat predictable. These are not subtle truths. They're fixed, they're easily observable. And we'll leave that sort of coding up to botanical geneticists to study. But astrology, the coding of spacetime, is for subtle truths within the human experience on Earth. So what are some subtle truths on the individual scale? Patterns in interpersonal dynamics, aptitudes, ineptitudes, propensities and predilections, a need to indulge in fantasy or a serious, grounded, matter-of-fact nature, a lack or an abundance of humor and playfulness. I'm talking about the immeasurable stuff, the unquantifiables. That's what we find in the space-time code. Now to step back to botany, we understand that plant genetics are naturally in a constant state of change. We only get heirloom tomatoes and corn, watermelons, and butternut squash from human-aided development and preservation. And the bees. We need the bees. If you trace back the word artificial to its original definition, it described anything that humans had a creative transformational hand in. From an apron to pottery to a handle whittled from wood. From that point of view, you could say that all these heirloom fruits and vegetables are artificial too. Of course, things have changed and the definition has taken massive leaps from its inception. I'm not saying that kale is synthetic. But the story of the word artificial, the arc from a clay pot to RoboCop, might illustrate to you just how thoroughly engineered our reality has become in half a millennium. Now, humans have shown an incredible tolerance for the synthetic. We wear plastics on our bodies. We digest chemical compounds. Some of us only exit the metaverse when sleep eventually wins out. It would seem, though, that our fortitude is wearing thin. Maybe we're losing ourselves, losing our humanity, our earthlingness more and more. Homo sapiens merger with machine is quickening. And not many people actually like it. Not a lot of people happy about it, but it's portrayed to us as inevitable. There exists, however, an untouchable wilderness in each of us. Distinct, unique, enduring, something that no geneticist can locate, no Neuralink can co-opt. The soul, the spirit, the heart of hearts. Its license to live is written in you, an occupant of three-dimensional space. It's written in the permanent ink of time. When all else is surrendered, the spirit is the final stronghold. So many of these systems of knowing thyself do a great job of describing the individual. Even the academy is a part of it now with the addition of human psychology. It's been extremely influential, not just in the know thyself, self-help trades, but on the whole culture. It's very modern, very Western to put so much emphasis on personal, individual identity as integral to a good life. But again, I think we've allowed ourselves to be atomized under the guise that it's for our individual and collective benefit. And it has come to a point where it's just not to our advantage anymore. Not at this scale. All things in moderation, goes the saying. I believe we should apply that to our fixation on individuated identity. We don't need to overcorrect in the other way. That's probably how we got here in the first place. We can regulate the rocking of the pendulum and can find a balance. This to me is where astrology or space-time coding if you will, separates itself from the pack. It has perpetuated through all forms of the human experience as far back as we can trace. Empires have come and gone, and the space-time coding of the subtle wilderness has persisted, unabated. And through all that time, our understanding of the code and its many applications has been deeply developed, and more layers continue to reveal themselves. Perhaps the most useful and needed technique today is what we call transits, or what a common person would call timing. Yes, you are the embodiment, physical and spiritual, of your birth time and place. But time rolls on, and the ever-emergent, ever-changing fourth dimension of time is in constant interaction with you and your time imprint, and everyone else too. It's the dance we call life, and there's a lot more choreography to it than you might think. I touched earlier on the horoscope with a microscope idea. We are in continual communion with the many cycles of time. For us on Earth, those are the cycles we can witness with the celestial bodies of our solar system, as well as beyond. And as a living system of cycles, it never repeats itself. Each moment of time is like a singular grain in a universe of sand. Time stretches forever in all directions. So, not only are we in constant navigation of the fusion of our personal time with the present emergent time, we are also mingling with the birth moments of every person, every 3D life form in our lives. The swirl of energies between us and our respective codings is called synastry, officially, or compatibility. It's not random, y'all. Whole cultures model their courting processes and family futures with this. And it's a lot more complex than, oh, a Pisces should never date a Leo. Which is actually sadly significantly more nuanced than swiping left or right. I'm not trying to dismiss the magical potential of organic romance, meeting somebody, falling in love. We can even leave that like it is. It's wonderful. But to live in peace and balance with the people around us, wouldn't it be helpful if we actually knew one another for who we really were? And if we were aware of difficulties or phases that others were going through? When I can know and recall these things in my relationships, it keeps me in a mentality of acceptance, understanding, true compassion. And I'm not saying I do this all the time, or with more than a tiny fraction of the people I know. But within my family, it's like a glue that keeps us bonded and on the same side. Sometimes, when you're equipped with the right tool, a hard task gets a lot easier. I guess underneath all my sci-fi space-time talk, what I continue to sense is a foundational polarity between, on one hand, engineered, top-down, conditioned reality. On the other hand, the organic reality we were born to live. To me, astrology illustrates just that, organic reality. The flowering of time at its purest. And who you are inside, deeply ancestrally. You might look at difficult past or current events and say, well, how could these things be an organic flowering of time? And we could pinpoint those moments. And within their space-time coding, we could see the truth, the subtle, wild, pure energies that were in play. Organic reality. And then we could also see how those energies were polluted and transmuted to benefit only the few, with the burden left for the many to shoulder. Engineered artificial reality. Whether or not the few at the top are intentionally wielding these codes while simultaneously lampooning astrology as hocus pocus, dangerous, irresponsible, your guess is as good as mine. But just read the ingredients on a generic bag of flour, bread flour, and you'll see how the status quo favors poison over purity and layers stacks of synthetics over top of the simple truth. The closer you get to living organically, physically, spiritually, mentally, ideologically, interpersonally, the more apparent the engineering becomes. And if the journey to the source sounds arduous, of course it is. But it's equal parts empowering and blissful as well. So you can see the work ahead of us. And now perhaps you can see the magical toolkit I'm presenting. The What's Your Sign version of the toolkit has a bit of merit and looks the part, but the hammer in there is more like a child's mallet. It's cute. It attracts a lot of attention. It makes a lot of noise. But when there are real problems to be solved, the child's mallet functions at best as a distraction. We possess the key to the back door of the coding of reality itself. Our mastery is increasing all the time. Come with me. Let's walk through the threshold. Let's make ourselves comfortable there. This space, this time, is actually our real home, is waiting to be reclaimed. This has been Astrocast. I'm Astro Phil. Thanks for lending your ears. Subscribe if you want to continue receiving these messages from me. Share this if you want to spread the love. My website is outofboundsastrology.com. I'm going to have an article version of this little manifesto on there. You can even book some time with me, but you gotta ask. You have to ask first. Okay, yeah. This is Phil, checking out. All blessings, all around.